Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor? Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it? Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all. Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today, I have the pleasure of having my brother here, Emanuele Pani. We were just talking about offline from straight up. Hey, look, guys, we got an international. We were just talking about that international roots here in the lab, but we got something in common. We all love real estate. We all love short-term rentals, and I'm so humbled to be here in the lab with him because this gentleman is the co-host of one of my favorite podcasts. I was telling him, this is not bullshit, guys. You guys, one of the reasons why I got into short-term rentals is because of their podcast that he hosts with Michael Sjogren. So without further ado, we got Emanuele in the lab with us, who is a real estate entrepreneur, investor, short-term rental expert, also a licensed realtor like myself, property manager, partner at Domu Private Investments, and a Clubhouse phenomenon. For those of you who are not familiar with Clubhouse, always dropping gems. So if this was Clubhouse right now, I'd be tapping my mic on and off. Welcome to the lab. E, what's going on, man?
Oh, my brother. I am so grateful to be here. And humbled, man. Like, you've had some amazing guests in here, so I'm just humbled to be among greatness, and just really excited to bring all the value I can to your listeners, to your family. So yeah, man.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Experiment Nation. We got a boss in the building. So I'm really interested about hopping right into it. I do believe that you are a reflection of your business. But I'm going to tie those two in together in a neat way today, because you are, like I said, a co-host of one of my favorite podcasts. And in the beginning, you said this key line in there. So I want everybody, first of all, to go check out that podcast, Short-Term Rental Secrets, right? And you say, we didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, didn't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing. And yet you find yourself in this very unique niche of short-term rentals. I happen to have fallen into it because of you and Michael. I kid you not. But how did you fall into it? And then I want to reverse engineer and kind of go back to the very beginning. So tell us a little bit about this short-term rental model that you're in, and how did you stumble upon it, man?
Yeah, man. So I always say this. I wish I could claim that I had seen it. And I wish I could claim that I had the vision back in 2010, right after college, that like short-term rentals was going to be a hot thing. But that wasn't it, right? So I went to school in Geneva, Switzerland for college, got a degree in accounting and finance, wanted to be a Wolf of Wall Street. 2010 was right after the big financial meltdown. Yeah. Broken up with the girlfriend at the time. So I was kind of like a dog with my legs between... my tail between my legs, right? And all I could do as a good Italian mama's boy, I came home, right? So my mom and sister at the time were living in an apartment complex down here in Boca Raton, Florida, that did vacation rentals. So he offered fully furnished, fully equipped rentals to the families that used to play tennis at this tennis academy, which is what my little sister used to do. And it was December 18, 2010. And I walked into his office, was the management office. I'm like, hey, I'm so-and-so's son. I just moved back from college. Our DirecTV is not working. And he's like, okay, don't worry about it. I'll send the maintenance guy. By the way, what are you doing? Like, your mom told me that you're coming back from college. Do you have a job? He's like, I'm like, no, I'm like, literally, I landed on the 16th. So 2 days before. I don't have any plans. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's like, look, I'm Jewish and I can't work on the weekends, right? I don't work Friday night and Saturday most of the day. So I need somebody that speaks English well, that will pick up the phone and run all the maintenance issues. And then we're going to our high season. I need a maintenance guy to help our other maintenance guy. That was my beginning. Like that was my foot in the door, right? And then I love taking care of people. Like it gives me a lot of significance when I'm able to take care of things, right? And I do that with friends. I do that with my clients. I like when people are like, he got us, right? And I approached that business from that perspective. So 6 months later, he quit coming to the office, right? He's like, you'll just run everything, right? I was 21 at the time.
Wow.
So I started running this thing for him. And then fast forward to June 2012, he gets a divorce and he's like, I want to move back to Israel. Do you want the management company? And do you want the majority of the units? I was 22, man. You don't know what you don't know, right? At the time. So you go like, yeah, absolutely. I'll take it. Right. I fired a maintenance guy. I was the only maintenance guy. So I did maintenance, reservations, and this is a 40 unit apartment complex. So
40?
I used to have 40.
Oh my gosh.
Right. 10 buildings. So I used to have like maintenance Wednesdays where I would literally spend all day on Wednesdays outside doing pressure cleaning, painting, doing all of that. Right. And at the time, my business model was a mix of ownership. So little by little, I started buying more and more of the units within this apartment complex. But then I did subleasing or rental arbitrage. And then once I kind of got more confident, I stopped refusing to renew subleasing and switched to a management.
Okay, so yeah, and I want to, because these are important points, and I think it's important that we break it down. And I love you're taking me exactly where I want to go. Right, I wanted to get a little mix of the background of E, and now you're kind of getting right into it. So let's break those down for a second, right? Because you said something key. First of all, I want to understand when this gentleman took off to Israel, did he still own all 40 units, and he said manage it while I'm gone, or here's the portfolio, like I'm selling it to you, like what was that arrangement, so we understand a little bit clearer?
So when he bought the place, he bought it from this one lady that her family had built it. And then when he saw what was happening in the market in like early 2004s, what he did, he subdivided the condo into separate condos, right? So he went from a 40 unit apartment complex to subdividing into 40 single apartments. And then he started selling them. And then what he put in there, and he's my real estate dad, right? Like my very first real estate mentor. And what he put in there is like a clause that as an original developer, he will always have first right of refusal on any sales on any unit.
Wow.
So he subdivided the condo, and this is very important, right? At the height of the market, at the craziest of times that people were getting second and third mortgages with no money down, right? The whole craziness. And then had first right of refusal. So then when people went belly up in like 07, 08, he started buying everything back, right? So when I started working for him, he was owning, he had built back up to 25 out of 40 units.
Wow.
And so the way that we did it, I was 22 at the time. As you know, coming to the States is very hard to build credit at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So he actually co-signed my loan with me.
Wow.
And so it was part owner financing. So he gave us the down payment as owner financing. And then he co-signed on the loan with me. So I went from a couple units to 16 units. And then when he was ready, actually it was 2 years after, I got 4 more units. And then everything else now was owned by other people, right? So and those were all my management or rental arbitrage clients.
Right. So and I'm glad you got there. So it sounds like, so first of all, like I want to go back to a very important key thing. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was an opportunity. You presented yourself with the opportunity, right? Good timing, but the student, the teacher will come when the student is ready.
Yeah.
And you gain trust, and then that's when he kind of, created that relationship of how, I'm going to, give you seller financing. Am I correct, or did the other come before?
No, bro, 100%. And the thing with me, that I look back on now, and that's a key thing that I look for in my own team now, is that I acted as if the place was mine. Right? I care about the people. I care about the experience. I worked on, like, when we had check-in or checkouts on the weekends, I worked for them, and I never, maybe I was 21 and I was just dumb. I never asked for anything extra, right? But it was just, I felt like it was my responsibility. And that's a big concept that I've learned later down the road with all the personal development, is really that concept of like the way we do anything is the way we do everything.
Yes.
Right. So it's really understanding that, like, honestly, that was probably the best thing I did, was not be money hungry at the time. And I just liked what I do. I got to walk around in flip-flops. Living in Florida and just managing properties, and I get to meet all these people, and like I was just having fun, you know what I mean? And I was also 21. I think he paid me $500 a week, right? But out of college, that $2,000 a month, you're living at home, you're not having any bills.
Yeah,
I was having a blast, right? So I was just really happy, and I led with value.
I love. Okay, so man, I knew this would happen. I get all the gems all at once, just pouring in. So what I love about that is I literally just heard this, right? It's sometimes even going into this business, you might think, oh, I'm too big for that. But what's so important for you is like the diligence of, like you said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So you might be listening right now and you have a job that you don't like. And I just heard this, I'm rephrasing it, right? And it's just so crazy how it's echoing. And, the secrets are there, guys. They're literally in front of us, the blueprints, right? So you literally are any small task, if you're listening, matters. And you're doing it so well that people will notice. So even if it's your janitor, you just make it the best job, right? It doesn't matter how small it is, and it'll show up. Not only will it be recognized, but it'll show up in other areas in your life. And obviously, it's not by chance that this gentleman saw that, okay, this is the right guy to hand the torch to. And I think sometimes we wait for, like, whether it's like, oh, the big opportunity, but the opportunity is in the moment. Even right now, if you have a 9 to 5, do the damn best job you can do. You don't know what doors it's going to open, right? And so I want to echo that because it's important, and it's something that can kind of slip through the cracks, but it's obviously a very key component to a pillar, one of your stepping stones of getting short-term rentals, right? So now let's talk about technical. I want to get into the technical. You mentioned some keywords: subleasing, arbitrage management, and it kind of goes in. This is great because it's flowing in with your story, right? You said that half of the units you were managing. Can you break down the different models? Because we hear Airbnb, we hear short-term rentals, vacation rentals. What are some of those maybe common, right? If you're either an owner or either arbitrage or you're managing, you want to talk about those and how they're different from one another?
Yeah, for sure. So just to clarify, at the beginning, once I took over the business in 2012, the remaining 20 units were not management. They were arbitrage units, because the way that my boss had it organized, it's obviously he owned and ran the supply of the entire place. So to him, it was better to do arbitrage than to do management, because also he had, and this is where I learned a lot of my tricks as well, he had made those people, the other owners, sign leases at guaranteed rates, but for 4 or 5 years. So we were paying about $500 or $600 under market, even on long-term rentals, right? But we were making all the money on the backside. So my setup at the beginning was a rental arbitrage, which is pretty much, you think about yourself as like a wholesaler and a retailer, right? Mm-hmm. So you're buying, and I heard this from Jay on Clubhouse, and I loved it, right? So we're buying, when you do rental arbitrage, you're buying an entire year from the landlord. And then as a retailer, you're subdividing the year into days or weeks or months, and you're reselling it to the public. Right? So that's such a perfect way of like understanding what rental arbitrage is.
Yeah. So and another good way, right? And I want to piggyback that because it's so important. The point that you're hitting is a simple way that people can think about how much their unit is worth is by saying, okay, what if you have a long-term tenant, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, E, because you're the expert, you've been in this space for a while. Is this another good way to think about it? Is perhaps you take those 30 days a month and you divide it by that, and then that's really how much your retail value is per day? Is that a good equivalent for folks to kind of identify? Because we're gonna get to some numbers. I think it'll get very
exactly.
interesting.
And that's the thing again, right? Because when I tell people, when you're analyzing rental arbitrage opportunities, what you want to analyze it is, let's say something happens and I need to rent this long term. Are you able to rent it long term while still making a profit, or the property can carry itself? So you really need to understand what that per day rate is, so that you really know how hard you have to push on the rental arbitrage side. The other side is management, and I call it management. Being licensed, I tend to call it management. I know some people feel uncomfortable with that word. You can refer to it as like co-hosting, which is pretty much where you host the property, host the property for an owner, and then you charge a hosting fee or a management fee. That typically in our industry goes anywhere between 20 to 25%. I've heard people get charged 30%. I think that's being greedy. And I heard people charging 10, 15%. That's going to kill the industry. And they're not providing quality service, in my personal opinion. Just because I know the amount of work that goes into this. And
so you're saying the sweet spot is 25, E?
20 to 25. I charge 20. I know Mike charges 25. I think if you include a technology fee, so I do 20% and a technology fee that goes to all the software, where we make a slight profit, or you can just include it at the 25%. So that's just different ways to do the management or the co-hosting side. And
okay,
of course you can own them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So then there's the ownership route, which is I want to talk about that because we're going to talk about scaling in a second, and I'm hoping we can connect the dots. So just to summarize, there's the arbitrage, which is which one would you say is the preferred method in your world? And if it's preferred for you, why may someone go the other route? Because I know even in the clubhouses we've been in, there's a lot of different kind of short-term rental folks. So maybe kind of give insight as to the pros and cons. I'd love to kind of hear it from you, considering you've been involved in all of the above.
Yeah. So when I first started on my units, I'll remember for the rest of my life, my mortgage a month was $11,335. My sublease payment every month was $41,000. Right. So I'm very grateful that I did that early on, because it built a super thick skin now. So now that I have a $40,000 mortgage every month, I remember the days that I had more and half of those units weren't mine. And I remember, and this is how crazy it got sometimes, that I would pay my mortgage in cash. And the reason why is because I only had the money to pay the mortgage the day the mortgage was due. Right? So I would go every month to the Bank of America, and they would know every month I would come in on that day, and I would withdraw $11,335 in cash. And then I would drive up the street to BB&T, that was the one that held my loan. And every month for 3 years, right, I went and dropped off cash. And not because it was cool, not because any of that. It's just literally because in the growing of the business, there were some times that the business, and I've been always asset rich, and most of the time cash poor, but cash poor just because I renovate units all the time. I'm constantly putting money back into things. I'm constantly investing. Like I bought a unit a couple of days ago. My savings account went back to like $500, right? But that's, to me, that's how we keep ourselves humble and hungry.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Go ahead.
Go. No, your brain kind of forgets the good and then just looks at the fact that you have no money and you're like, okay, I got to start hustling again. I know
Yeah,
Grant Cardone does this too, right? He
exactly.
spends
Yeah,
all
he
of his
stays
money in
broke.
apartment buildings.
Yeah, and because it puts that puts you on your toes again to go ahead and go make more money, which is a very interesting psychological kind of way to put it, because again, it's
Warfare.
exactly, human nature is to be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So you're putting some discomfort behind that because you know yourself, which is interesting. But I want to get back to a second, and maybe
To the question also, I completely missed the question as
no,
well.
no, it's
Between arbitrage
well,
and
we talked
management.
about arbitrage and management, but I want to make sure we break it down for the people, because I know sometimes it can seem a little bit like, oh, okay, that's wait, I'm confusing. Who's paying what? Like, so from talk about it from the you're the guy who's doing the arbitrage, right? And so essentially
Uh-huh.
you're saying that, hey, look, just like any rent, I owe a certain amount per month. And
Correct.
can you talk about the typical markup, and maybe at the time, because I want to make sure you bring that home. You said something about 40,000 versus 11,000. Can you break that down at a monthly level? Is that what it was at a monthly level? I just want to
That
make
was
sure.
my monthly. That was my monthly nut. Yeah.
Okay, so does that, for someone who's listening, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? How would you look at it in retrospect, right? Just so we can put some context behind that example, because I know some people think there's more risks behind arbitraging, and some people think, oh, co-hosting is safer. So I want to just go in that direction for a second. In retrospect, what are your thoughts on that business model?
So I I didn't know any better, right? So I just ran with it. What I tell people now is if you have the confidence and you have the ability of presenting yourself as an expert and you can do the co-hosting, it's one, better for your scale, right? Because it's a lot easier to scale if you're just worrying about onboarding properties and networking with clients and meeting clients than it is for you to raise the money or find the money for an arbitrage, right? Because if people don't know, usually arbitrage, if you're getting into a rental, you're looking at first, last, and security. Maybe you can get away with just first and last or first and security, but then you're looking anywhere between, and you should spend on the higher end 10 to 15 grand to get a property furnished. Let's say it's a 2-bedroom unit, everything together. So let's say that you're all in 20 to 25 grand per property. That shit runs out quick.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not gonna you're not gonna have that kind of money for forever. Then what do you do, right? Do you raise money to finance the arbitrage? And what happens if regulations change? What happens if the building changes, right? You literally have, so I don't like that model just because it gives me too much anxiety for that side. I did it. It worked great. You know what I mean? Like my average 2-bedroom unit that I was arbitraging, I was paying anywhere between like $1,350 and $1,450 for it. I knew long term I could rent it in our market for about $1,850. So if in case I wanted to get out of it, but my short term would average out for the year at about $2,650 to $2,850.
That's really important, because it goes back to the point that the long term, on a worst case scenario, rainy day regulations change, would still allow you to cover your I guess, I don't know if it's a good way to say that, your lease. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just covers your bills, right?
Yeah, covers the bills. But then on the upside, you have enough room to actually make the bread at the top, right? So some cash flow on the top. So that's very interesting. So from an arbitrage model, so I'm really glad you explained that. From an arbitrage model, do you ever find yourself being able to negotiate furniture, or you're saying it's best practice in these markets to just say, hey, look, I'm coming in, I'm doing arbitrage, and I'm expected to pay for the furniture? What does that look like for someone who's ambitious and who's a negotiator? What is best practice?
So in my personal opinion, a lot of the times when you inherit furniture, you're inheriting mostly a headache, right? Because I mean, chances are, unless the guy just furnished it brand new, chances are the furniture in there is shit. Really, like let's really think about it. Like if you're talking to a seasoned landlord that is doing it and has any kind of furniture in there, he's been probably renting it that way for a couple of years. He thinks they're worth something, they're not. Two, you have to really understand, and this is where it comes to like all the branding and like the reality of our business, is that you're crafting an experience and you're crafting something that people are going to remember, right? Are people going to remember that your place was furnished through Salvation Army? Or what are people going to remember, right? So there is a benefit in starting with a blank canvas. And especially if you're going for scale, you need a blank canvas so that you can repeat your brand and your image and your concept over and over. So in that sense, you're gonna want to be as consistent as you can with it. So long story short, most of the time it's you're on the arbitrage side, you're gonna be renting stuff that is empty. And then the quality of the furnishings, that's up to you. You can get scrappy with it. Facebook Marketplace, Salvation Army, Goodwill, IKEA. IKEA is a great low barrier, medium quality product and is replicable, and they always have it.
Oh,
right.
that's really good insight. So that's interesting because you talked about a reality, right? Right, and we're gonna get to management in a second, right? Or co-host, but the reality is you're putting money up front, right? And I'd be glad to hear how you're putting money up front, or if you're strategically, business credit, like how are you leveraging that, and then what's the expected return when you're running this business model? Are you thinking like, hey man, I gotta break even halfway through the year. I gotta, when can I make my money back? If I'm listening to this, I'm like, this sounds interesting, but I mean, that's quite a bit up front. When do I get that money back? Are you thinking that way? How should I be thinking about this?
That's a good question. So I don't tend to be that person, to be honest with you. I'm a like shoot, run, aim kind of person. If I even aim at all, you know what I mean? I'll just I'll just go for it. So my brain doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? My brain is there the profit in it? So am I running my numbers? So my brain goes as far as like, I'm running my numbers. I know that the market is actually solid. I know that I can make this type of numbers. And then my goal is to always run as scrappy as possible in the sense of profits. So I'm a big plant for the future type of guy. Because what I realized is over the last, and I was talking to our friend Kevin from Clubhouse that I saw in Miami yesterday. And what is amazing nowadays, after doing this for 10 years, I have planted so much that when I do need it, something sprouts. But that was never my intention. My intention was like, I don't really need it right now, right? My partnership with Domu Investments, we buy apartment buildings for cash flow in the Midwest. We've been doing so from 2017. We haven't touched a single cent that came out of the business, right? But that's how we grew on other people's money from $0 to $100.
Gotcha. So, and again, I appreciate that because you're thinking long term. And the reason I say that is because, you hear a lot of short term rentals, and there's a lot of things out there where, it's kind of a lowest hanging fruit, very easy to begin, etc. I mean, maybe we're talking about two different business models. And so I want to get into the co-host because there's maybe a little bit more less, again, for some risk adverse individuals who are listening, right? Not your typical E-type who want to maybe warm up to the business model. Are you then saying co-hosting may be a better option if you're maybe still, a little bit, and again, we're not saying that, and I don't think our listeners are that, but I like to put things into perspective for the listener as far as the differences in the business model. So would you then say, what would you say the difference then is with co-hosting based on what we just talked about with rental arbitrage?
Yeah. So to me, the co-hosting is great if you are a person that is system forward, right? And there is a person that enjoys learning and you can learn about things and implement them, right? Because like I look at Mike, right? And Mike is a perfect example of this. And the way he did it, that's my favorite way. Do it. You buy, if you're able to, you buy your first property as a vacation rental for yourself, and you kind of go to the lab, right? And you start experimenting with everything. And then as you get proof of concepts, you package it with your systems, and then you go out to the marketplace. And then your value is your education, and your value is your life experience, and your proof of concept is your property, right? But even if you don't have the money for a property, education is worth something, right? The fact that you're spending hours and hours listening to this podcast or our podcast, or you're reading books, that's your sweat equity, right? So to me, co-hosting, it really becomes a thing about how confident you are in your own abilities to do short-term rentals. And I realized more and more over the years, it's like your sale as a real estate agent, right? I don't know if you have a lot of listeners that are real estate agent, but like, do you remember your first listing presentation versus the one that you go in now, right?
Yeah.
I used to put on a suit. I used to tuck in my shirt. Like, dude, I have half of my arm it's all covered in tattoos. I have tattoos on my fingers, right? I'm like, that's not me. But you're not confident, so you think you have to be in a certain way. But experience fixes that, right? And experience and getting that positive or negative experience under your belt, because either one, right, builds on experience, and then it builds that confidence. And then co-hosting, you can scale infinitely with a proper team and support behind you without ever having to worry about raising money or doing any of it. And the beauty of it, if you know our friend Julie George,
Yes.
is that you can sell it. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you're an entrepreneur type that likes to build things and sell them, this is the baby for you, because you can put the systems in place, you have the contracts in place, and that is a business that you can sell.
Yeah.
Can you sell a bunch of leases? Can you sell a bunch of leases on an arbitrage thing? I don't know. I don't know anybody that has done it.
I love that. That's so important. And that was such a gem. And I mean, you must have been flattering me. You said going to the lab and experiment. Come on, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that's the truth, right?
That's what it's about.
You know,
it's a hell of a real estate experiment. So I'm so glad you said a keyword, because I'm listening closely, and I hope you guys are taking notes, because, you know, he speaks with a purpose here, and every word that he says is key. He talked about scaling and selling businesses, which is, I mean, I'm selfishly so interested in that, and building businesses and systems. So let's talk about that at scale. Short-term rentals. What does that look like if you're operating one? Let's talk about the team that you're putting on together, you know, the systems that are in place. I know that's a lot, but in a nutshell, like let's start from ground zero. What's the most important foundation that one should build if they're really looking to start scaling? And what does actually scaling look like? And maybe we can dissect the both models as well as we go.
Yeah. So I love that for a couple of things, right? So there is, to me, systems come in two ways: system software, system people, right? Because people are a system, right? Having a team is a system. So when it comes to the people side, you need amazing cleaning people. Cleaning people are the backbone to your business. There is no vacation rental business without cleaning people. A note about cleaning people: understand how society, and this is really like, if you're trying to grow a business that takes care of people, right? Understand that most cleaners are considered second class, right? People don't respect them. People barely talk to them, right? So really, like, find the people that are good and pay attention to details, and then really take care of them. Like, pay your cleaners well, give them vacation. I give my cleaners Christmas bonuses. I give their kids Christmas cards, right? Like, they're people. And again, they are the backbone of your business. Because if the cleaner installs from the beginning of the show, right, the idea of this is mine and I'm going to go above and beyond, that's the extra quality of experience that it's really going to level you up from the rest of the people, right? So does she see something in the corner and does she live it, or does she go pick it up? That only happens if she's appreciated or he's appreciated, right? So great cleaning people, great maintenance people. So if you're not a handy person or you don't have maintenance people, those are going to be your two key people, right? A great real estate agent, a great property manager. If you're a real estate investor, you're like, I just want somebody else to run this, a great property manager. And then just having a good boots on the ground type of person that can be your cleaning person too, right? Like, who's going to buy your supplies if you're going to invest out of state, right? If you're going to invest not locally, who's buying your supplies? Who's going to restock, right? So those are the people software side of things, the people system. And then you have the actual software. And the beauty of that is that keeps expanding because as more and more people are coming to vacation rentals, more and more people are bringing technology from other industries and applying it to our industry.
That's very interesting.
So, yeah, dude, like, for example, price labs, right? Dynamic pricing softwares. Airlines have been using it for years, right? But there was a barrier to entry, right? Like hotels had revenue management people. Price labs is a revenue management system that you just plug in and runs your listings. And so it optimizes your prices based on supply and demand.
Yeah.
Smart BNB optimizes your messages. So if you're a host right now and you're going from that 1 to 5 unit range, understand that the biggest headache for you is going to be just how many more messages you're going to be getting, right? So having something that allows you to optimize your response, like Smart BNB, it's going to be saving you so much time. Because at the end of the day, your job is not responding to guests. Your job is working on the business, not in it. So really understanding what that looks like for you. A great property management software. I personally use Hostfully. I know Mike uses Guesty. There's a ton of them out there. And the reason why you want to have it on there is, again, understanding big picture, looking down as to what you want your business to look like. Even if you have one property, put it on a PMS system, allows you to push it out to as many channels as possible, giving the most amount of exposure possible. And it allows you to integrate Smart BNB, Price Labs, and all these other softwares that help you run your business more smoothly. So to me, one of the big things that people always need to understand as they're getting into this business is going to treat you as well as you treat it, right? So is this a side hustle or is this a business? Is this a little business or is this a retire your mom and your wife business, right? Like, understand that. And then with that in mind, and that's why we ask all the time, like, if you heard Mike on Clubhouse, what's your goal?
Yeah.
Right? It's understanding backwards. And then you create the systems from the beginning that support growth. Going back to a real estate analogy, right? A developer knows the building size before it builds the foundation, right? A developer doesn't go in, we're on the 8th floor, the 8th floor is built as like, shit, we should build 12 floors, let's add foundation. You can add foundation, right? Or you can at an extreme cost. So if you have a clear vision as to where you want to go, then that's when you start playing around with how good of a systems you want to put in place. I run a 40-unit apartment complex on Excel, answering all emails myself and phone calls myself on a direct booking website, barely using Airbnb, and I was still making over $1 million a year, right? But I had no fucking life, right? So it's understanding the systems are here to help you own a business no working one.
Man, I love that. I love that. And I'm so glad you said that, because it's just, again, I've listened to the podcast and I hear it and I'm hearing it in the flesh. It's like, give me the goosebumps. And I hope everyone's listening, because if you're listening to this or watching this, because I asked the same question with, you guys know that this is brought to you by Invested Talent, right? We produce podcasts, and I have a lot of people, hey, I need more content. What's your end goal, right? And I think sometimes we're so busy working in our lives, forget the business, in our lives, that this is why you touched on this. Again, you're leaving gems. Personal development allows you to have like a overview of why am I doing what I'm doing the way that I'm doing it, right? And I feel like that's everything. Even some of us who are in career or business, like, why are you in the business that you're currently in? One of my favorite books is The Millionaire Fast Lane. It has, I don't know, have you heard of it, E?
Yeah, I think I have it somewhere.
It's the sense model. It's like, does the business have control? Barriers of entry, is there need, time, and scale? Like, those are like, now I look at every business like that, or every opportunity, like, because I know that what I'm optimizing for. And so this is not about me, this is not about E, this is about you. If you're listening, it's like, ask yourself that question, and then it's kind of like a nice way to, I loved how you used the analogy of a developer, reverse engineering. Now, with that said, E, because we have you here, we can't let you go without asking this. What does it look like to work on my business? You said you were the Excel guy. You were deep into the trenches. You had your head down. You were working hard, but it doesn't sound like, again, I'm sure, obviously you're a smart guy. It sounds like you could have been working smarter. And what did that look like as you transition out of that? Because obviously now it sounds like it was hindsight 2020. What does it look like to work on your business? And what should folks, again, you mentioned some of these systems, but what does it look like on a day-to-day?
I mean, dude, so the biggest thing that changed for me, going back to what you said just now, right, is I was doing it that way because that's how I inherited from somebody. And Clubhouse wasn't a thing, right? There were podcasts, but there was nothing about short-term rentals as a podcast, right? And there was no personal development. Like 2010, there was no personal development books on short-term rentals, right? Airbnb was created in 2008, right? So imagine.
Oh, really?
Right?
I didn't even know that.
Industry is young, right? So a lot of how I did things was just because I didn't know any better. But that is no longer an excuse that you have, just with the amount of amazing content that is out there, right? And also the next biggest thing was, for me, I joined a mastermind back in 2015 called M1, March to a Million, by Rock Thomas. And he's a good friend and a great mentor of mine. And really seeing people alter their lives, right? Really understanding the power that we have in creating the reality that we live in through the choices that we make and how we choose to go about life. That was never something that like I grew up with, right? And you know, being from France, right? Like, that is not a topic there, right? People are like, you know what I mean? Like, people are, I'm a son of a doctor, a psychiatrist, and my mom was an attorney. Is an attorney, she just never practices. So those were my two, growing up, those were my two outlooks. And then I came here, started listening to podcasts, right? Had this job, had my head down in this job, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? Like, we're supposed to be good soldiers, put our head down and work. But the thing is, like, if you look at the people that make it, they work on their business, not in them, right? And look at Jeff Bezos, right? That's the ultimate move now, of working on it, not in it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the goal of every entrepreneur, is to build businesses that run without you in them. But I think that's a lesson that's kind of lost on the entrepreneurial side of things, that the American dream pushes you to work hard, work in your business. But the little secret of working on it, not in it, and empowering people and leveraging that for growth and freedom, that's a message that has kind of got it's kind of gotten lost, right?
Yeah, and you know, yeah, I was just talking about this with someone yesterday. It's what it is too. Sometimes I think it's interesting. It's like this double-edged sword of being an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of, or I guess now it's a little bit sexier or a lot sexier, but there was a lot of friction of like, you're doing what? So then it goes back to, okay, I'm gonna prove you that this is what I said I was gonna do. I'm gonna do it. But then what happens along the way, it's you start realizing, no, I got this. I can do it the best. Or I told you I would prove you wrong. So watch me. And I literally just had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman who was talking about the power of partnerships and building teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're an entrepreneur who's out there, it's like, it doesn't have to be a battle where, you know, you want to leverage systems, you want to leverage, you know, people, you know, platforms, right? The resources, right? To get you to where you want to go. And it's an ego thing, right? Sometimes it's an ego thing as well. And sometimes you just don't know any better.
Yeah. Most of the times, man. And I think the ego attaches itself to living in a struggle. A lot of the times makes you feel in a certain way. Yeah. Right. And that what Tony Robbins talks about this all the time, right? You become addicted to your traumas. Because it's nice to play a victim at times, because you know what that feels like, right? And by playing the victim role, you're kind of creating this reality where you are a certain person, right? And just being an entrepreneur, and the type of entrepreneur that I choose to be and you choose to be, I rewrite it every day, right? And is this constant wish for, and Matthew McConaughey had the great speech at the Oscars, right? Who's your hero? My hero is me in 5 years, right? And then he meets that hero, is like, who's your hero? My hero is me in 5 years, right? And that's how I live my life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always outgrowing me. And in the process, my ecosystem grows with me, right? Because that is your opportunity as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a short-term rental operator, right? Your ecosystem, all the people around you grow with you. And it's this wealth that just goes around on all perspectives.
I love that. See, I love it. So keyword growth. I know we talked about scaling, working on the business. Let's talk about, okay, cool. You got your first one, let's say, depending on the model, whether it's co-hosting, whether it's owning. I want to talk about the owning piece for a second, because I think what you talked about, you know, our buddy Mike, a good proof of concept, and then he took it to a property management company. Now, we are in a circle where we have a lot of individuals who are either building property management companies, or some of them are also owning their portfolios. I'm curious, this is more of a question for myself, if y'all excuse me. When you're trying to grow your portfolio and you have the kind of cash flow that you're getting on short-term rentals, I know you on the show, every time you come on the show on Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast, you're talking about refinancing, you're talking about that. I'm curious, is there any type of financing that you feel is non-traditional when it comes to short-term rentals? And the reason I'm saying this is it cash flows like an untraditional asset, but I'm sure it's seen as a comparable as a, you know, traditional asset. So I'm curious as to, is there financing out there that you've heard of? How does one go from one to the other? Is it just, hey, stack up, pour it into the next deal? As we know, because again, we're always trying to understand, and maybe it's how we understand things, but maybe there's another model that you understand, that you're aware of, that we don't know.
I mean, I think I said this the other day. The beauty with real estate is that there are so many ways to skin an apple, right? Yeah. And the more you know about it, the more ways you see. So one of the units that I bought was an owner financing deal. I literally offered a guy $5,000 down payment. And again, you know what I mean? Like, this was a rental arbitrage client of mine. He wanted me to switch to a management model. I didn't want to. but all he cared about is that he wanted consistent payments. I'm like, okay, so I'll give you $5,000. Hold a note for me. Give me a note. Right? We have somebody on the show, Noah Hoffman, that does subject to deals. So he buys properties, assuming the loan that is on it, and then just owns the property free and clear and does vacation rentals with them. Right? So there is all types of ways that you can go about this, really. You know what I mean? And then the big thing that is happening and a big change that I see in the future when it comes to vacation rental is on the lending side of things. The lending as being a big machine, it takes a little bit longer to understand the nuances of new businesses. So the one problem that you are going to have when you grow, and especially if you're buying a lot of your properties and then you're trying to refinance them, is that a lot of banks, traditional banks especially, there's some new one coming out right now, don't look at our business, the vacation rental business, as a factor towards your lending.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is that they're gonna run it as a long-term rental. So sometimes you won't qualify. That's changing. I think that's gonna keep on changing as our business is really improving and showing that it's here to stay. But that is where my struggle comes in at times, is because I make all this money and they're like, yeah, but our underwriters. Well, can I talk to your underwriters? Like, can we
show them the numbers, show them the juice.
But the problem with that business is that it's a box with shapes on them, and that's all underwriters know how to do. Yeah. It's like, okay, that's a circle, it fits in a circle, right? Yeah. And I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. It's creative. And this is why you talk about education, creative financing. And another thing I want to make a note of, because that's something that I've been hearing a lot frequently, is there are some of these lenders with the whole Freddie Mac thing, like they're a little dependent on some requirements that are, that will allow them to resell the loan as well. So their hands are a little bit tied, because I know, for them, it's more profitable for them to be able to resell a loan, right? And that's why, so sometimes you have 100%. To abide by those rules. And even if they are maybe progressive, it's just, that's now you're understanding it's a different animal, a different conversation.
Yeah. But, and I think on that point, if you are going to be doing something like that, finding a portfolio lender, aka a small local bank that does not resell their loans, that gives them a little bit more flexibility. There are some great local banks in pretty much any part of the country. But again, it goes back to education. Because if you don't know what you're going to ask about, there's nothing for you to do, right? And so it's really understanding and owning the fact that I've been doing this for 10 years. I know nothing about this business, right? I know nothing about real estate. I'm always learning and I'm always taking notes. Like, I have posted everywhere of no ideas and concepts from people, because people are reinventing this business all the time, and all you need is more tools on your toolbox, on your belt, to know what you got to do with it, right? So every house is fixable. Every real estate deal is workable. It depends on how many tools you got and what level of expertise you have, right? If you show up at a house rental and you have a screwdriver and a hammer, and that's all you have a Phillips screwdriver and a hammer, how much of the rental can you do?
Limited. Yeah.
Right? So really owning that fact that, like, is your wardrobe, is your tool belt, and really looking, even if right now you're in a job that you hate, what piece of outfit is this adding to your life, right? Like, what tool are you getting, right? Are you doing marketing right now and you hate it? You know how amazing you're going to be at vacation rentals, having a marketing background, understanding how to use Facebook ads and understanding how to create an experience for somebody. So really, like, listen and audit your life and experiences that you have, and see where life is giving you tools for this next journey that you're about to take. May that be just real estate investing, or short-term rental investing, or becoming a real estate agent, right? Like, anything you want, chances are you've learned something useful, as long as you reframe how you look at your life and your past experiences to benefit you in this moment for the future you that you're about to create.
Oh man, drop the mic, man. This is insane. We gotta get you on some we gotta get you on some stages, man. You are a mover and you
I know
say it very well.
Clubhouse.
No, definitely
I'm
follow
on
you.
stage.
Well,
I'm
you
on
are
that
on
COVID
stage.
stage. I'm on
I
that
know, I love
COVID
it.
Clubhouse stage, you know?
No, you are. And the other day, when I was on with you, and it was maybe a couple weeks back now, I missed you on a few of these. But yeah, you are always like dropping mics. That's really, and because you condense it in a way that's easy to consume, and I really do appreciate that, man. With that said, I want to transfer over because we could be here forever, dropping bombs all day. I want to get into some tactical secrets from this is a question from the audience for some beginners, and just so I'll make sure that I'm knocking on the right door because you're operating at scale. Do you still use platforms like Airbnb? Still?
Yeah, actually more now. As
More
I
now?
mentioned, I used to do mostly just direct bookings. Because again, I started this 10 years ago. When I started, I could pay VRBO to be on the top of their list of rentals. I would get clients emails. So the level of access was different, and I always hated how I had to play by other people's rules to be on those platforms. Right. So I stayed away from them. And to me now, and if you know our buddy Mark Simpson out of the UK, right? The whole concept of like, don't build your house on somebody else's land. Right. And to me now, I look at all these channel managers and this all these different platforms as just auxiliary avenues that feed to my direct booking site. Right. So can I fill gaps through those platforms? Great. That's what I'm going to use them for. But my main business is not dependent on somebody else's business. It's not dependent on somebody else's policies. It's dependent on my policy, my cancellation rules, my cancellation fees, my booking fees. Because again, talking about businesses, right?
Yeah.
You want to own a business. You don't want to depend on a business that is somebody else's.
Yeah.
No matter how nice a platform is,
Absolutely. At least, and I think what E is saying there, if you're listening, because I know there's a lot of newbies who can, and when I say newbies, I don't mean to real estate. I mean to maybe this model. I think there are some good platforms that can help you get started, like Airbnb being one. I know Mike's a big fan of starting on one platform.
Oh, dude, it's a great one. Yeah.
And it is. But I think what E is saying, which is really important, is that as you grow, and this is the same, if you're an e-commerce guy, I know I've been an e-commerce guy, depending on fulfillment by Amazon or depending on that, you want to be able to control a list, right? If you're digital marketers out there, you listen to Russell Brunson, what does he always talk about? Traffic secrets, right? To control your traffic. If Facebook's literally wants to shadow ban you, or Instagram or whatever, if that's your only source, your businesses literally have shut down because of that. I know people's Amazon accounts have been shut down. Like you got 6 figures of income for your whole entire month just locked. Right. And so what he's going in this space, I think it's really important to echo that it's really important that you control. That's what we talked about. Control your business as it grows. And that's a really great reminder. Because even myself personally, I haven't gotten to that place yet, but it's a really good reminder to optimize for control in any business that you're in.
Yeah, and it goes back to our point from earlier. Like if you're a listener and you're looking to get into the vacation rental space for the one cabin for you and your family to use, you can put it on Airbnb alone and you'll be fine. Right? So again, it's like understanding what
end goal.
What's the end goal? Do you want the most amount of money? You obviously have to be on the most amount of channels, right? I'm not talking rocket science, right? Like you need exposure. So you only get exposure by being on as many channels as possible for as many people as possible. Are you thinking this is more of a part-time thing? You can get a 50%, 45% occupancy just being on Airbnb alone. And no, like, dude, you can get it with a Q property. You don't even have to pay with the prices. You don't have to do any of that. You can answer all the guests yourself. But again, what is the angle? Right? Like, is the vacation rental going to just pay for itself? Or is the vacation rental going to buy you your upgrade? Or is the vacation rental going to buy you a boat that goes with the vacation rental?
Like that.
Right? Like, what is the goal?
Like that. So, real tactical fire round questions, real quick.
Yeah.
For people who just getting the listings up. Most important thing that you want to put in the listing. First thing that comes to mind.
Best 5 pictures should be your first 5 pictures.
Best 5 pictures. Okay.
And you do great. Like I looked at your listing. That listing was fire, right? And it's also understanding, dude, what makes you click on an Instagram profile is what makes you click on an Airbnb listing. Like, we're very simple creatures.
Yeah.
We like things that look nice and clean and cozy, right? So like understanding, putting yourself. So if you're going up with your listing, first of all, there is a sweet spot, in my opinion, of how many pictures you want. So you want to be in the like 12 to 15 range, maybe 20 if you have a lot. I'm looking for houses for the summer. I'm planning on going to Europe for the summer. There was this gorgeous house, had 65 pictures on it.
So we're all.
I'm not going through 65 pictures of the house, right? It's unnecessary. Are there going to be some people that are going to love it and go through all 65 of them? Yeah, my wife did, right? Like, my wife is like, oh my God, this is amazing. She went through all of them, right? But it's not necessary.
Yeah.
When you're furnishing your rentals, if we're talking about new businesses, your first listing that you're putting up, understanding, especially if you're a real estate landlord that is transitioning into this business, we're not slumlords anymore. Like, you're in the hospitality industry right now. You have different responsibilities, and it really becomes quality in, quality out. So spend the money on the nice things. Don't worry about all the accents and all the bullshit. Spend the money at the beginning on good mattress, good sheets, good towels, good pots and pans. I know it might be appealing to buy the cheap ones. They get fucked up so fast. You're going to end up buying so many more. Right? Same thing with towels.
Yeah.
Like, you buy shitty towels, they won't last because you're going to wash them a lot. You're going to do all these things a lot, right? So it's really understanding quality in, quality out, and then really putting yourself, like, spend the night in your Airbnb when it's ready. Like, are you chilling on the couch with your girl? There's no blanket. That's an uncomfortable experience, right? Do you have a closet that has no hangers? Or has 3 hangers? How often do you go to an Airbnb that has 3 hangers in the closet? Are we gonna fight for who gets the hangers? Like, what game are we playing? Like, what do you want me to do, right? Also, plates, man. Like, you're sleeping 6 people, you have 6 plates. That means that every meal somebody has to do dishes. Like, understand what you're doing, right? You're offering a vacation to somebody and a vacation spot to somebody. So cater that experience.
I want to talk about that for a second for the listener. Soap and towels. Are you what's the source for that? Good towels and bulk soap. Are you doing like hotel little soaps? Are you doing big tubs?
Yeah.
Are people taking them? What are you doing?
No, I'm doing hotel soaps. So
Why is that?
I buy all my towels and sheets from factory direct linens. They're a hotel hospitality supplier. And I buy. So if there is like a Ritz and a Hyatt, and then a Marriott and a Holiday Inn, I buy like Hyatt to like lower Ritz when it comes to the sheets and the towels. Just because that's what I like when I travel, right? Like, don't you brag about people? Like, what's the best thing about going to a Hyatt? The beds are fucking amazing.
Yeah.
The towels are soft, right? Like, I almost like, if I go to a hotel, I really like the towel. it's a daily struggle for me not to run away with at least a towel. Right? I'm like, this is not this. I should not be doing. Like, I do this for a living. I can't be stealing people's towels. But it's true, right? So like,
Yeah,
and then I buy hospitality stuff all in bulk. So shampoos, everything else. I buy everything in bulks.
Where can one go if you're listening to that and maybe you're like, okay, I need to do that? Do you have a resource for us?
Yes. And I'm gonna be just looking at it, finding it for you.
That is the plug. You guys are getting some
Thing is,
short-term secret knowledge on the air.
So I buy my stuff from National Hospitality Supply. That's natshop.com.
Natshop.com. You guys heard it. That's interesting. That's interesting. And that's so important because another thing too with the big tubs and all that. Like, I mean, how many are you going to go through? You want to be economical and you want to give a good experience. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, and also what I used to do was what I got from my boss at the time. He used to go to BJ's, and he used to I just sent you the link to the website.
Nice, thank you.
But he used to go to BJ's or Costco, right? And he would buy an entire thing of Dove soap bars. Half of those were halfway used by the time our guest left.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this makes no sense. Right. So I started buying them in bulk, and then I have an office, and then I just keep them there, and they come in a set of like 500 to 1,000.
Wow.
Little soap and shampoos, right? And they're really like they're not that expensive in comparison to what you pay for a tray of Dove soap from BJ's. And again, it goes into your systems, right? Can you create economy of scale? And that's why I don't like doing multiple properties across multiple states, because it's harder for you to. Here, I'm just opening my latest order so I can tell you exactly how much I spent on it. So, okay, look at this, right? I bought 450 hand soaps, 144 things of conditioner, and 144 things of shampoo, or a total of $225.
No way. Really?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then we just keep them in the office, and they stay in the office, and we literally end up ordering them. And this is amazing because I can tell you this. We ordered August 2019. That was our last big order. And I think we still have some.
Oh, guys, if you're listening to this, it's literally February. What is it? We're literally the 4th today, 2021. You heard the man.
So we ordered them, and we ordered a lot, and we just order them whenever they come on sale. You know what I mean? But and then you just keep. So, when we open the last box of it, so the last 100, we order the next round. So our team is never running out of things. They're never going to get things, never doing any of that bullshit. It's a business. Like, all the supplies are at the office. The business runs from the office. Everything is there.
Wow. I love that. So, you hit every point there. One thing we talked about, speaking of efficiency, setting temperatures inside the house. Is that something you guys set it, or do you give freelance, wide range of temperatures for the guests? I know that's one thing that people always ask about.
It's Florida, man. Like, whatever. I mean, I'll tell you, you can't go under a certain temperature just because you're gonna freeze the AC unit. But then it's up to you. So I am not that
granular.
Yeah, that granular about it. You know what I mean? Like, in Florida, like, it's, it's 40, like this morning was like 44 degrees, which is a random cold day for us.
Right.
You want to turn the heating on, like,
hospitality.
Dude, just be comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, do what you need to get comfortable.
Yeah. You see something funny on your cameras. You talk about having boots on the ground. What is the next step, and what do you actually do in those cases?
With the boots on the ground?
Yeah. Is that like, hey, you should pass by? You know, you have 6 guests and you have 15. What's the next step? Is it a call directly to the guest? Is it a, you know, how do people deal with conflict in those circumstances?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not gonna happen as often as you think, right? Second of all, if you make your listing with the right guest avatar in mind, that's gonna already take care of sorting out a lot of people, right? They're not gonna be prone to coming to your property. Next, if you put the right systems in place into screening your tenants, and screening doesn't have to be anything crazy, just the questions you ask, right? Hey, why are you coming into town? How many people would be there? What are the ages of things? People that are about to do some stuff, they don't want to answer all the questions, right? So they'll just move on to somebody else.
Do you answer individuals who have lower reviews, or do you, because I know there's a lot of different things with hosts of like, hey, if you don't have any reviews, we don't.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I did direct booking for so long.
Yeah.
On direct booking, you go off of a vibe, right? Like on the phone, I can tell the vibe of the person on the phone. Right.
On the phone.
But so yeah, I tend to on Airbnb, I'll look at it and I'll ask, you know, if I see that it's a newer account, I try to understand, is it a grandma that just joined? Right. So what's the harm in that? Right. So it's really understanding who's your guest going to be, you know? But when the problems happen, man, to me, it's always been best to just have a friendly face. There kind of goes there, you know what I mean? Like my head maintenance guy, he's very, very friendly. But he also gets intimidated at times, right? And so when he gets intimidated at times, that's kind of when I go in. And to me, it's all fun, right? And it's really true, right? Like to me, I've done this for so long that I don't take anything personally anymore, right? Like at the beginning when I used to do everything, my blood would boil when people would like not be happy because I had so much of my own personal identity invested in it. So them saying that something wasn't good was saying that I wasn't good.
Yeah.
Right. So I would start boiling. Right. Now I understand that some people are just miserable no matter what you do. Right. But it's also understanding that those people are used to people responding to them in a certain way. So the moment you can go in and flip the script and respond to them with empathy and understanding and humor, right? Humor goes a long way, right? So my team was sick not too long ago, like maybe like two weeks ago. So a guest checks in and is like, hey, this and this is not working. When will somebody be there? I'm like, I'll be there in an hour. So the remote wasn't working. We had to call the telecommunication company. I'm like, okay, I'm going to call them tomorrow. Here's an extra remote, but I'll get you a new remote. I'll call them tomorrow and I'll let you know. And the wife was very upset. The husband was more on the cooler side of things. And she goes like, well, what time are you going to call me tomorrow? I'm like, well, I get up around 4:30. So I'll call you about like 5:15. And she just kind of looked at me and the husband just starts laughing, right? Hysterically. I'm like, no, I'll call you around 9:30, right? But like understanding that like there is humor in it and humor will change the situation completely.
Yeah.
And also making your guest feels that like, dude, I got you. Like no matter what it is, my commitment to you as a host is that I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of the situation and I'm not going to take advantage of you. That's when guests feel upset the most, is if they feel that you don't care, you're going to take advantage of them. I'm just plugging in my computer 1 second because it's about to die.
No, this is, I mean, gems on gems. Look, man, I could selfishly just talk you and I for the longest time. You've been giving so much game to us. The only thing I want to ask, because you're such a deep, well-rooted individual, it's so admirable what you've been able to do at such a young age already, and you know, with the Titans in this space. So I salute you for that. But I can't leave without asking, you know, what is, you know, one of the best habits that you feel serves you every day?
Mhm.
as a starter, because I like I said in the beginning, I believe you're a reflection of your business, and it's not by chance. And so I'm very curious as to. I believe we are creatures of habit. So, what is that one for you that you think jumps out and sticks out?
Okay. I love that. Right. And right now I'm doing this 75 hard challenge by Andy Frisella.
Yes, sir.
Um, and this is my second time doing it, right? I did it in May. I've lost like 40 pounds in May, and I'm working on my like last 20 to go
Good for
back to
you,
like
man.
my like high school body, which is gonna be fun. But really is understanding the compounding of daily choices. And I don't know, that's not necessarily like a habit per se, but it can become a habit. And what I mean by that, it's understanding that, and I love speaking in like metaphors, right? So understanding that life is all about white pebbles and black pebbles. And at the end of the day, what matters the most is at the end of the day, when you look down in your bucket, is it mostly white pebbles or black pebbles? And it's really getting into the habit of asking yourself this decision, right? Who am I trying to be with this decision? Right? Are you trying to change your career and make $1 million and be the first person in your family to ever make $1 million? What choices does that man or does that woman make? And it's really then being aware and auditing your choices and really building on that and the compound effect, right? And like Atomic Habits, for example, is a great book, right? You're gonna pull it up. That's awesome.
Well, I got the journal.
The journal. Look at that. I didn't even know
Yes.
they had a journal.
Oh yeah, you can track all your habits, man. This is one of the best things I did.
Yeah.
Every day, guys.
Yeah.
Every day.
And
One
they
brick at a time.
build. And that's the thing, right? Like the biggest thing that the 75 hard did for me the first time, I've been a kid. Part of my identity has always been I'm somebody that eats a lot. And like I don't think I remember the last time in my 30 years of life that I went 75 days without a pizza or a plate of pasta. Right. But it's understanding that like I did it. So where does that apply everywhere else in life? And that's why we keep reinventing ourselves and pushing ourselves, because we have realized, and I'm speaking we in the sense of like entrepreneurs, because I think that's the thing that we have the most in common is that the moment we're able to rewrite part of our story, we understand we can rewrite the entire fucking movie. Right. So it's just like understanding about like having that perspective into everything that you do. And then that perspective only gets fulfilled by your daily choices. Black pebbles or white pebbles. Very simple. And I'm not saying, dude, there's times that I walk around for a whole week with just black pebbles. It happens, right? Yeah. But how far are you going to walk down that path?
Facts. Wow. Emanuele, man, I want to be part of your journey. The audience wants to continue to be part of your journey. What is next for you? I mean, you've done so much, and you're continuously still grinding, which I love. And I'm hearing fulfillment behind that. I'm hearing discipline. It's just so lovely to see. What do you think is next for you? And then after I ask you that, where can we kind of follow that journey and support you in that journey? What's next for Emanuele?
So I think what's happening with E is that E is really coming into himself, right? And I think that's the thing that happens, and that's why like people are like overnight success. It kind of feels that way at a certain point, right? Because you just fall into this groove of like just knowing and kind of trusting your vision and your thoughts and your desires and your ambitions, and then you really going back to our habit thing, right? When we keep going and building on these habits, you get stronger and stronger, right? So your own personal self-worth gets bigger and bigger. So now you're not somebody that says, maybe if I would like to, you're like, I'm doing this shit, and then I'm doing that, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing that, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all it is, right? So that's I got a big goals. I'm opening a brokerage, a real estate brokerage soon. I'm looking forward to bringing on a team of like-minded people that understand the value of real estate as an asset, but also the ability that we have as real estate people to provide an experience to our buyers, our sellers, and our investors. I see us growing the property management business and growing our acquisition side. Domu Investments, we have ambitious goals to buy 1,000 doors this year as long-term rentals. And then I love the hospitality game, man. So I just want to get into more hotel, motel, boutique kind of situations on both a management side, but on an acquisition side, and really be able to continue to grow that brand.
I smell vertical integration, man. Brokerage,
I love the vertical, man. Like the vertical is the way of life. You know what I mean? Like it's just, if you look about it, man, everything is built on a vertical.
I love it, man. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite conversations to have with entrepreneurs. Like when I see it and I can identify, I'm like, wow, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And to me, that's going back to the ecosystem thing, right? A vertical becomes an ecosystem, and you take care of people, and people take care of you, and you take care of people, and people take care of you. And then they trust and know and love you, and trust and know and love you. And then they never leave the ecosystem. And that's what I see for our brand, for our vision, growing. And then my personal growth is going to continue as well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there is any entrepreneur that no matter what the business does, there is a equally amazing, intense side of growth that is of the individual as well. Right. So I don't know what that growth is going to look like for me. I know the last 4 years with like plant medicine and a lot of like coaching and a lot of personal development, I have unwinded and discovered a lot of the ways that I have become who I am. And then, so that's just continuously rewriting what my story is. And right now that's very open to whatever comes.
Movie director right in front of us, guys. Well, first of all, we love you and we trust you already. You've already created that trust in the hour and a half that you spent with us here in the lab. So,
oh wow, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't even realize.
It's crazy, and I couldn't help myself. So first of all, I'm for sure speaking for myself and the rest of the community who's listening. We're going to want to be part of this journey with you and support you and love you and continuously trust you in that journey. Where can we find out more about you, E, if people don't already know where to find you? Give them the plug, brother.
Yeah, man. So I every week we release an episode of the STR Secrets. If you're part of our STR Secret Mastermind, I'm on that page a lot, just helping out people. Clubhouse, Epani Real Estate, Instagram, epani.realestate, and then Domu Investments, also an Instagram page. You can follow us there. That is going to be more of your long-term traditional investing kind of information and content. And then my personal page kind of piggybacks on everything in between, from short-term rentals to the podcast to real estate, coaching, and everything else.
Crazy how it all comes full circle. And it will definitely, well, guys, if you're not on Clubhouse, you gotta follow Emanuele Pani, I should say. I don't know if that's your handle.
I think it's Epani Real Estate. I think that's the handle.
Real Estate. Make sure you follow him
on Clubhouse.
Make sure you listen to the podcast, and one of my favorites. And I'm not biased just because I know the team is taking care of some of the content out there, but it's just by chance that by network that we connected with Michael, and then I'm like, who is your co-host, man? This guy is just ferocious, and I love what he's about, and I love and I knew we'd have a great one like this. So
yeah, man, anytime, be happy to come back on if I can add any value or be a service to your community in any way. I'm always available. And then I look forward to this year being over and meeting in person, and you're always welcome to South Florida anytime you want.
Brother, I appreciate that. Likewise. So on that note, guys, make sure you check out Ian, all that he's doing. We'll have that in the show notes. If you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel. We'll include all those notes and all the gems that he gave us. And just like that, guys, we are out.